For nearly 75 years, the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list has been instrumental in apprehending some of America's most dangerous criminals. What makes this list unique is that it only features individuals deemed by the FBI to be exceptionally serious threats to society. To earn a spot, one typically needs to commit an extremely heinous act or have an extensive history of major crimes. The list's origin dates back to 1949, when a journalist asked the FBI to compile a list of the 10 most elusive criminals they were pursuing, with the intent of seeking public assistance. After obtaining the list, the reporter published the suspects' photos on the front page of the Washington Daily News, and thus began a tradition. Since then, the FBI has successfully captured almost 500 wanted fugitives thanks to tips from the public. Let's examine the current individuals on this infamous roster. Kumar Chetan Patel. On April 12, 2015, a surveillance camera captured two Dunkin' Donuts employees, a man and a woman, walking towards the store's back room around 9:30 p.m. before disappearing from view. Moments later, the man reappears on camera and nothing seems amiss. However, a few minutes later, customers alerted authorities when they noticed no employees in the shop. Upon investigation, police made a horrifying discovery: the lifeless body of an Indian woman named Palak, who had been brutally beaten to death by the man in the footage, her husband, Kumar Patel. Investigators later learned that the couple had been embroiled in a series of heated arguments in the months leading up to that day. Court documents revealed that their visas were set to expire in a few weeks. Palak wanted to return to India, but Kumar insisted on staying in the US. It appears he found a tragically violent way to express his frustration with the situation. After the crime, Kumar was last seen taking a taxi from a New Jersey hotel to a train station in Newark. His subsequent movements remain a mystery. To draw attention to this suspect who might otherwise evade justice, the FBI placed him on the Most Wanted list. Currently, there's a $250,000 reward for information leading to his arrest. However, almost a decade after the crime, it seems unlikely he'll be apprehended anytime soon. Alejandro Rosales Castillo. The youngest suspect on the Most Wanted list, 26-year-old Alejandro Rosales Castillo, has been on the FBI's radar for over 8 years. In 2016, he shot his female co-worker, Trisha Ann Carney, in a wooded area in Cabarrus County, North Carolina. A few days later, the victim's car was found at a bus station in Phoenix, Arizona. As the investigation unfolded, authorities discovered that multiple individuals were involved in the case. The main players were the victim, a woman named Amia Feaster, and Alejandro himself, all of whom worked together at a restaurant in Charlotte. Investigators learned that Trisha and Alejandro had briefly dated, and after their breakup, Castillo began dating his other co-worker, Amia Feaster. According to court documents, Trisha had apparently lent money to Alejandro. On August 9th of that year, he texted her to meet him at a quick trip on Eastway Drive in Charlotte, claiming he was going to repay her. Disturbingly, that's when Castillo decided to rob her at gunpoint, take her life, and flee to Mexico. In a chilling piece of surveillance footage later released by authorities, the suspect can be seen crossing the Mexican border through Nogales, Arizona, accompanied by his girlfriend, Amia. A couple of months later that same year, Amia turned herself in to authorities in Mexico and was charged with accessory after the fact to felony murder and larceny of a motor vehicle. Based on her testimony, she and Alejandro had been staying with the killer's cousin. At some point, Castillo disappeared again without explanation, prompting her decision to surrender. As of 2024, the FBI has no further leads that could result in Castillo's arrest. Their current belief is that he's likely still residing in Mexico. The last time he was seen, he wore his hair short and shaved on the sides, but that's about all they have to go on. There's still a $100,000 reward for information leading to his arrest, but there have been no further updates on his case. Ruja Ignatova. In 2016, Bulgarian entrepreneur Ruja Ignatova, dressed in a striking red gown, took the stage at the Coin Rush Global event in Wembley, London. She boldly proclaimed her vision for the future of her cryptocurrency company, OneCoin. During her presentation, she claimed that within 2 years, everyone would forget about Bitcoin, and OneCoin would dominate the crypto world as the one true digital currency. It's hard to imagine that any of her excited, applauding investors knew they were stepping into what would later be described by the New York Times as one of the biggest scams in history. For several years, Ruja, or the Crypto Queen as she's now known, promised her buyers 5-fold and even 10-fold returns on their OneCoin investments. Normally, such claims would raise immediate red flags, but with the entire world scrambling to join the crypto gold rush, countless investors jumped at the opportunity without a second thought. This resulted in a massive OneCoin buying frenzy between 2014 and 2016, with the company raking in more than $4 billion from unsuspecting investors, including over $50 million from US investors alone. As investors would later discover, OneCoin was essentially a pyramid scheme, rewarding them for recruiting friends to buy in as well. For a while, this shady multi-level marketing model seemed to work for Ruja. However, in 2016, many investors began complaining about difficulties selling their OneCoins and seeing no path to recouping their investments. Word began to spread online that OneCoin was a scam, drawing the attention of both the media and federal investigators. Unfortunately, it was too late. Less than 18 months after her Wembley presentation, Ruja boarded a plane from Bulgaria to Greece and vanished without a trace. During the investigations, federal authorities leaked a series of disturbing emails written by Ruja, which made it abundantly clear that she knew she was defrauding people from the very beginning. In some of her messages, she admitted that the company wasn't actually mining any coins, that her cryptocurrency was worthless, and that her investors were fools for trusting her. In one particularly damning email, she proposed an exit strategy to her partner, Carl Greenwood, which involved taking the money, fleeing, and pinning the blame on someone else. During the investigation, Carl eventually pleaded guilty to wire fraud and conspiracy to launder money, for which he was sentenced to 20 years in prison. It was later revealed that the FBI had been onto Ruja long before she fled Bulgaria, even recruiting her American boyfriend to investigate her company's practices. After uncovering her extremely sketchy business practices and her grand scheme to swindle billions from investors worldwide, she was charged with wire fraud, money laundering, and securities fraud. This promptly landed her a spot on the FBI's most wanted list, making her only the 11th woman to earn that distinction. Looking into her background for clues about what might have driven Ruja to such nefarious actions, federal investigators uncovered some intriguing details. As it turns out, Ruja was fluent in 4 languages, highly intelligent, had once held a position at a prestigious consulting firm, and had been obsessed with fashion and maintaining her image from a very young age. It was only in hindsight that prosecutors could clearly see how she leveraged all these qualities to execute her malicious plans. Unfortunately, it doesn't appear that the FBI will locate her anytime soon. Rumors suggest that after fleeing the country, the crypto queen may have drastically altered her appearance through plastic surgery and is believed to travel with armed guards at all times. Disturbingly, there have also been several allegations that she was murdered by an accomplice, but this remains unproven. If she is still alive, the FBI suspects Ruja is traveling on a German passport to the United Arab Emirates, Bulgaria, Germany, Russia, Greece, and various countries in Eastern Europe. Given how elusive she's been since her disappearance almost 8 years ago, it's unlikely the FBI will ever uncover what became of Ruja Ignatova after she pulled off one of the largest financial scams in history. Arnaldo Gimenez. On May 12, 2012, Arnaldo Gimenez and his wife Estrella celebrated their wedding in a sleek black 2006 four-door Maserati. Less than 24 hours after the couple had exchanged vows, Arnaldo stabbed his wife to death in the car, dragged her into the bathtub of her apartment in Burbank, Illinois, and vanished without a trace. When Estrella didn't return to pick up her children at school the next day, her family alerted the authorities. Police then made the grim discovery of Estrella's remains, still in her wedding dress, in her bathtub. Immediately, a nationwide manhunt for Arnaldo was launched, but by that time, the suspect had long since fled. During the investigation, it came to light that Gimenez had reached out to a friend before his escape, telling him, "If anyone asks where I am, tell them I went to Mexico." Since then, authorities have received multiple tips suggesting Gimenez may have fled to Durango or Los Mochis, Mexico, where he's believed to be hiding out with family members. Initially, a $100,000 reward was offered for information leading to his arrest. 4 years after he was placed on the most wanted list, the FBI increased the reward to $250,000. Burbank police have stated that in the past 12 years, they've received hundreds of tips about Arnaldo's whereabouts, but none have led to any significant breakthroughs. After the crime, investigators traced his phone and determined that he had traveled from Chicago to Tennessee, then to Arkansas, and from there to Hidalgo, Texas, very close to the Mexican border. Unfortunately, they were unable to determine where he went after that. Police have also revealed that the car in which Arnaldo carried out his heinous crime was never found. If the suspect is ever caught, he'll be facing life in prison for first-degree murder and unlawful flight to avoid prosecution. However, Based on how things have unfolded since he was last seen, it's unlikely Arnaldo will ever face justice for his atrocious crime. Vel AR Inon. As the leader of one of Haiti's largest and most violent criminal gangs, Cras Barry, Vel AR Inon, and let his name not fool you, he is indeed not innocent, has terrorized the region for years, earning a spot on the FBI's most wanted list for his role in a string of brutal kidnappings and murders. In October 2021, he collaborated with the notorious 400 Mawozo gang to carry out the high-profile kidnapping of 17 Christian missionaries in Haiti. Disturbingly, 5 of the kidnapping victims were children, one as young as 8 months old. Held at gunpoint, the hostages were reportedly kept captive for 2 months, while the gangs demanded a ransom of $1 million per hostage. It was only after an anonymous donor paid an undisclosed sum to Cras Barry and 400 Mawozo that the missionaries were finally released. Based on court documents, Innocent and his crew ended up spending the ransom money on weapons. That same year, the Haitian president was assassinated, which caused Innocent's influence to grow exponentially in the chaos that engulfed the country. In the aftermath of the assassination, Cras Barry claimed new territories and expanded their ranks quicker than law enforcement could keep track of. In 2023, Cras Barry boasted an estimated 600 members, many of whom were young children involuntarily recruited to serve Innocent's criminal organization. Almost exactly 1 year after the kidnapping of the Christian missionaries, Cras Barry kidnapped 2 U.S. citizens under Innocent's orders, Marie Odette Franklin and Jean Franklin. Unfortunately, one of the victims did not survive, while the other was held for a $300,000 ransom. Somehow, Innocent still managed to walk away scot-free. In April 2024, CNN released an interview where Innocent brazenly showed off his luxury home, which stands out like a sore thumb amidst the extreme poverty surrounding it. Surrounded by gold-trimmed couches and chairs, Innocent explained to the reporter how he came to power. In the interview, he shamelessly blamed Haiti's corruption on the country's politicians, refusing to take any responsibility for his own actions. Interestingly, he also alleged that before becoming the leader of Cras Barry, he had once owned multiple legitimate businesses, including a hotel and a rental car company, but claimed his companies were destroyed by the government. According to multiple crime analysts, Innocent was once a political activist before he turned to violent crime to maximize his influence. Back in the US, Innocent is wanted by the FBI for an incredibly long list of crimes, including kidnapping for ransom, theft, murder, assault, vehicle theft, and destruction of property. There's a $2 million reward for information leading to his arrest, but with powerful connections and an armed gang, it'll be extremely challenging to ever bring him to justice. Omar Alexander Cardinas. In 2022, the FBI released 2 eerie before and after clips of a man walking into and then running away from a shopping mall area on August 15, 2019. The man seen in the video is 29-year-old Omar Alexander Cardinas, and let's just say that he didn't exactly go shopping in the time that elapsed between those 2 clips. After disappearing from the camera's view, Omar approached a man standing outside the Hair Icon barbershop at an outdoor shopping center and fired several rounds from his semi-automatic handgun at the victim's head, killing him instantly. Immediately after committing the crime, Omar fled the scene a little after 4 p.m., as can be seen in the chilling FBI footage. A suspected member of the Pierce Street gang in Los Angeles, and often going by the nickname Dollar, Omar is believed to have fled to Mexico to seek refuge among his relatives. In September 2021, a federal arrest warrant was issued for the suspect after he was charged with murder and unlawful flight to avoid prosecution, which landed him on the most wanted billboard. Even though he committed a brutal crime essentially in broad daylight and didn't exactly shy away from the cameras after doing it, law enforcement seems to know surprisingly little about Omar. The only things they really know about him are that he's around 300 pounds, wears thick prescription glasses, has at least 1 tattoo, and is considered armed and dangerous, which alone is hardly enough to track down a criminal who's crossed international borders to flee prosecution. With time, hopefully more information will surface, leading to his potential extradition and arrest. But for now, it looks like Omar will remain a most wanted criminal. Yulan Adonai Archaga Carias. Back in the 1980s, a gang known as the Mara Salvatrucha was established to protect Salvadoran immigrants from other gangs in the Los Angeles area. Fast forward a couple of decades, and the Mara, or MS-13 for short, had become one of the most brutal and violent criminal organizations in the world. Nowadays, MS-13 has a strong presence in El Salvador, Guatemala, Honduras, Mexico, the US, Canada, and even Spain. They engage in all kinds of criminal activity, from drug trafficking and human trafficking to extortion, murder, and racketeering, often using extreme violence to maintain their influence and control. For many years, a man named Yulan Adonai Archaga operated as the head of MS-13's criminal activities in Honduras, providing support and resources to the gang in Central America and the US, with firearms, narcotics, and loads of cash. Often operating under his alias Porky, Yulan is wanted by the FBI for trafficking multi-ton loads of drugs through Honduras to the US, and for the killing of several rival gang members. Among Porky's colorful criminal charges, you'll find everything from murder to racketeering conspiracy to drug importation to possession of machine guns. Even though he's only around 160 pounds, Yulan is considered one of the most powerful men in Honduras, as the MS-13 gang has had the country in a chokehold for years. The most shocking part of the story is that at one point, Porky had already been apprehended by the Honduran authorities and was even taken to a courthouse for a hearing on charges of murdering 2 Honduran prosecutors. But during the hearing, 20 armed men dressed up in the same clothes as the anti-gang police units walked into the building, escorting a veiled suspect, and suddenly opened fire on the guards. In just a few seconds, the men subdued the guards and safely escorted Porky out of the courthouse, killing 4 police officers in the process. For obvious reasons, Porky is considered armed and extremely dangerous. Due to the sheer nature of his crimes, the United States Department of State's Narcotics Rewards Program is offering a reward of up to $5 million for information leading to Palamino's arrest. One of the things that makes it extremely difficult to track a suspect like Porky down is that he's taken every possible measure to fly under the radar. Although he's believed to still be in Honduras, he and his security team use untraceable numbers from Israel and Poland, and he goes to extreme lengths to keep his whereabouts a secret when he contacts his family. Although the hunt for Porky is far from over, he's likely to remain one of the most elusive and dangerous fugitives on the FBI's most wanted list for years to come. Alexis Flores. In a seemingly peaceful Philadelphia neighborhood one July afternoon in 2000, 5-year-old Ariana de Jesus was playing outside with her sister and friends when her mother briefly left for a quick errand. Upon returning, Ariana's mother faced every parent's worst fear. Her daughter had vanished, taken by an unknown man. Ariana's mother immediately reported her missing, sparking a widespread search across the city. In a frantic attempt to raise awareness, Ariana's family and friends covered the area with flyers and missing posters, but no leads emerged about her whereabouts. Tragically, after several weeks of searching, authorities discovered Ariana's lifeless body in the cellar of a deserted apartment building just a short distance from where she was abducted. Investigators found a T-shirt with a distinctive political emblem at the scene, which they believed belonged to the perpetrator. During the inquiry, an individual came forward, claiming he was certain the shirt belonged to a drifter he knew only as Carlos, whom he had once hired as a handyman. Despite this promising lead, the case went cold for several years, leaving Ariana's family heartbroken and bewildered. It wasn't until 2007 that authorities were able to re-examine the shirt, thanks to improvements in DNA technology. Their findings revolutionized the investigation. The DNA on the shirt matched perfectly with that of a man named Alexis Flores, who had been arrested in Arizona for petty theft in 2002 and forgery in 2004. Unfortunately, by the time his DNA was connected to the crime, Alexis had already been deported to Honduras years earlier for other minor offenses. As law enforcement would later discover, tracking down Alexis Flores would prove to be far more challenging than initially anticipated. Throughout his extensive criminal history, Alexis had utilized multiple fake birth dates and aliases. Despite being included on the FBI's most wanted list, the only details they have about him are his approximate height of 5 feet 4 inches, weight of 130 pounds, and noticeable scars on his forehead and right cheek. Due to the nature of his crimes, Alexis is considered armed and highly dangerous, with a $4 million bounty for his capture on charges of kidnapping and murder. One might expect someone to have come forward with information by now, but 24 years after the crime, Alexis remains at large. Wilver Vas Palamino. The National Liberation Army, ELN, is a Marxist-Leninist guerrilla group in Colombia, often described as the country's last true insurgency and one of Latin America's most formidable criminal organizations. In recent years, the ELN has aggressively expanded its operations into Venezuela, now boasting over 6,000 active members. Interestingly, for the first few decades after its inception, the group primarily focused on kidnapping, extortion, and targeting oil infrastructure. However, over time, the ELN became deeply involved in the international drug trade, which eventually caught the attention of the FBI. In 2023, Wilver Vas Palamino became the 530th addition to the FBI's most wanted list, facing multiple serious charges including narco-terrorism, murder, and drug trafficking. Often operating under the alias The Hog, Palamino is a high-ranking ELN member implicated in a 20-year conspiracy to distribute narcotics from Colombia to the US, resulting in an arrest warrant issued in 2020. Wilver has also been accused of murdering several human rights advocates in Venezuela and the Catatumbo region of Colombia between 2017 and 2019. Due to his high rank and responsibility for flooding the streets of Houston and other major U.S. cities with drugs, the United States Department of State's Narcotics Rewards Program is offering a reward of up to $5 million for information leading to Palamino's capture. As of now, his whereabouts remain unknown. However, considering that the ELN oversees the production of over 200 tons of drugs distributed worldwide, including the U.S., it's no surprise he made it onto the wanted list. Donald Eugene Fields II. Since 2022, Donald Eugene Fields has been sought by the FBI for allegedly trafficking at least one child in Missouri between 2013 and 2017. According to authorities, Fields took a 14-year-old girl and offered her to his associate Ted Sartori Jr. in exchange for money, vehicles, motorcycles, vacations, and holiday gifts. Last known to reside in Franklin County, Missouri, Fields has reportedly been moving around the country since 2022, taking on occasional jobs as a tree trimmer and independently selling used cars to evade detection. Based on court documents, it's believed Donald may have victimized more than one person and might be hiding out with his girlfriend, Jennifer Griggs, who is also wanted on a felony warrant for failure to provide child support. Law enforcement has received numerous tips suggesting that Fields spent time in the Tampa area. Upon receiving this information, they began running social media ads featuring his face on a most wanted poster, seeking public assistance in locating him. Unfortunately, it's likely that by then, Fields had already fled to South Missouri. The FBI has also placed large billboards displaying Fields' face in cities where he's known to travel, but so far, he seems to have successfully stayed ahead of law enforcement. Earlier in 2024, Sartori, Fields' accomplice, pleaded guilty to his charges and is facing up to 30 years in prison. He will also likely be required to pay $225,000 in restitution to his victim, with official sentencing scheduled for early November 2024. According to the FBI's description, Fields has multiple scars on his body and a tribal print tattoo on his right shoulder. With the extensive effort being made by the FBI to make Fields' face known, there's hope that one day he'll be recognized and promptly turned in to the authorities. For now, police have urged the public to consider him armed and dangerous.